Hi, welcome to the July 1st reorganizational meeting of the East Aurora Union Free School District Board of Education meeting. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, members of the public will not be permitted to attend the Board of Education meeting in person, and members of the Board of Education will attend the meeting remotely via Google Meet. The Board of Education meeting can be viewed via live stream today at www.eastaurora.org/BOEMTG or via the link on our main district webpage. In addition, the Board of Education meeting will be recorded and transcribed at a later date. If you have a comment or statement that you would like to have read during visitor comments, please email them to boe@eak12.org prior to 6:45 p.m. tonight. The board president or district clerk will read visitor comments during the appropriate time during the Board of Education meeting. Now, I would like to call the reorganizational meeting of the Board of Education to order at 6:02 p.m. and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Newly elected board members Jessica Armbrust, Dan Brunson, and John Seghetti were administered their oaths of office this past week in the district office. So now it is time to open the floor for nominations for president of the Board of Education. Nominations may be made by any board member and no second is necessary. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Mary Beth.
Okay, Kim?
John nominates Mary Beth.
Yep. We have two. Okay.
Need more?
I think we'll do a roll call vote in alphabetical order. So I will call your name and you tell me yes or no. Jess Armbrust?
Yes, absolutely.
Dan Brunson?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Kim Daniel?
Yes.
Judy Malice?
Yes.
Terry Oweiler?
Yes.
John Seghetti?
Yes.
So, congratulations.
That's what you said.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Mary Beth was elected as president of the Board of Education by a vote of 7 yes, 0 no's. I now open the floor for nominations for vice president of the Board of Education. Nominations may be made by any board member and no second is necessary. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Jessica.
Nope. Who was it? Terry?
No, that was Judy, but I was going to say the same thing.
Okay. Judy nominated Jess Armbrust for vice president of the Board of Education. I'll again go around alphabetically. Jess?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mary Beth?
Yes.
Kim?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Congratulations, Jessica Armbrust, Vice President of the Board of Education. The President and Vice President will make arrangements to give you your oath of office in the district office sometime in the next week. And I now turn the meeting over to Board President Mary Beth Colbert.
All right. Thank you, Jackie, very much. Item A under our annual reorganization matters. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education appoint Jackie Whopper as district clerk for the 2020-21 school year, effective July 1st, 2020. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Jessica, second.
Second.
Seconded by Judy Malice. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Hey,
Carried
Jackie.
7-0. Congratulations, Jackie.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Item B, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Sue Kramer to act as deputy district clerk during the district's fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020 and ending June 30th of 2021, and authorizes her to perform such duties and actions as may be required of the district clerk in the event that Jackie is unavailable. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Kim Daniel. Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0. Item C, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Julie Nagel as district treasurer for the 2020-21 school year, effective July 1st of 2019, and that hers or in her absence, Melissa Webster, assistant district treasurer, be the authorized signature on checks. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Dan Brunson, second.
Second.
Seconded by John Seghetti. Discussion.
I just have a question. It says it's effective July 1, 2019.
Oh,
And this
It's just a must type on the agenda. Did I say 2019 when I said it? Because it's effective July 1 of 2020.
okay. I just wanted to, okay. Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Just bear with me 1 minute. Brian, we had 23, right?
Yes.
22. May I have a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters related to 23 particular employees? That's ambitious.
So moved.
Second.
I'm sorry, who moved?
Kim? Kim.
Moved by Kim Daniel, seconded by John Saghetti. Discussion? All those in favor?
Before we leave, Mary Beth and Jessica, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, follow that second link you have on your email from Jackie from yesterday.
Make sure you exit out of this one before you go to that one.
Thank you.
Two.
Good evening, everybody. This is the East Aurora Board of Education reorganization meeting for Wednesday, July 1st of 2020. We are returning from executive session. where we discussed matters related to 23 particular individuals, as well as the collective bargaining with our East Aurora Faculty Association and the East Aurora Civil Service Association. I remind everyone that as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, this meeting is taking place via Google Meet, and the Board of Education is attending the meeting remotely. People can watch it live on our district website, and it will be recorded and put out. A transcription will be provided at a later date on the website. Mr. Ross, any agenda
Okay.
changes?
No agenda changes.
All right, then we are on Superintendent's Comments.
Okay, great. Okay, I have a number of things to share tonight. And I just want to start by to the board. We just had a conversation with David Aurora, and the executive order that allows us to maintain this style of meeting, it expires on July 7th. So that's within this week. So if it's not renewed, then we would have to come back to a live format, and that includes opening it up to having the audience present and all those types of things. So I can't imagine what that would look like under the current orders. So I'm assuming, and so is David Rourke, that the executive order will be extended. So we're hopeful, but that's how it goes. So we hopefully will know in the next 6 days. So I just want to let you know that.
And somebody will send an email around once that order comes down, if it comes down.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So yeah, Jeff, you just want to keep an eye out for that one?
Yes.
Yeah, important. Yeah. So the other thing, we talked about this before, and when I brought it up the first time, I didn't realize this. We talked about like people paying tuition to bring their children to school. You know, we've done that in the past, and we've done it for years, and it goes in cycles. You know, we have, you know, at times 1 or 2 students. It's never a number. But we thought maybe under these current conditions, especially, we didn't know the status of the budget. We didn't know the status of the governor's proposal in terms of our aid. We decided that we thought we would suspend it. What I didn't realize is we had somebody come in very early in the year and had filled out the paperwork. What happens for me is the paperwork doesn't really file through to me to sign off until we're actually going to charge them tuition. So I didn't have that information going into the last meeting. So we gave them, I guess we gave them approval. You know, I mean, it hasn't been finalized, but we did, you know, agree that we would allow them to come in and go through the process. So I was just thinking that we have another person who is interested so there's a second person who is interested in paying tuition, and I believe that they may be actually moving into the district. So we treat those people that is, if you actually are able to complete the construction of your home and that process, then we allow them a certain level of there's a little bit of gray there until like that transaction is finalized. So we don't know, like some people say I'm moving in and then they don't, and they end up paying tuition because they don't get it done, or they don't have the house in place, or aren't building it in time, or whatever it is. So I know we were going to hold off on it, but in light of the fact that we approved somebody earlier in the year, I don't know how the board wants to handle that.
Well, if we approve someone already, I don't see how we can take that back.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't sign off on that, Terry. I mean, I didn't give the final signature for approval, but they've gone through the process and they filled out the proper paperwork, and that the tuition part, I'll be honest, is more of just the final process. And we've never denied anyone, because again, we have that tuition paying policy. If you want to pay, you can come here. Yeah, we've always had it. And like I said, you know, we don't have like a lot of students. But you know, from time there's a few, 2, 3, sometimes 0, you know, depending on the year. And that ebbs and flows, like I said, from 0 to 3, or maybe 3 or 4, maybe. What do you think? I don't know. Not even that many. So
does anyone have an objection to it?
Yeah. And now that the budget passed, I mean, that was a big piece. It's a big piece.
I don't personally have an objection if it's not impacting our own students being able to have their course selections, and it's not impacting class size in a significant way, or hitting a, you know, anything,
Right.
that way, but anybody else?
Brian, does this, is there a deadline when people, I mean, could more people now apply?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, they could
So-
apply, Kim, they could even move in the middle of the year and apply to pay tuition. And so what we were thinking is that if we were going to see, like, if the budget went down and we saw a large cut and class sizes went up to, we didn't know what was going to happen if they start pushing to the upper 20s and 30s. I mean, we still have some of those, but more and more elementary level, that we thought for this year, let's just like maybe take a year off and wait it out. Now that we know that the budget passed, that's a big hurdle to get over. We're still waiting for the governor's proposal, and I'm going to address that in just a minute. But I don't think it's as dire as it was when we were speaking about, just waiving it for this year.
Yeah.
Anybody have an objection?
No objection.
Okay, Brian, you're good.
Thank you. You know what? Let's see. Yeah, why don't we just talk about the budget a little bit? We've been trying to. I've been working with Dave Aurora and the entire team from Erie to BOCES about our budgets and trying to get as much information. And Dave has been really fantastic, honestly, as our representative at not only with the state education department but also with the governor's office. And he's pressed them along with the other DSs across the state to give us as much information as we possibly can. But we've been through and I'm not blaming anybody, but they changed the budget vote date. They changed their minds on summer school. They've changed their minds on the summer meal, programs. So everything has gone back and forth, and so it's really been a challenge to try to keep up with it. And the one thing that we consistently hear is about the governor's cut to our aid. And so we talked a little bit about that, and primarily he's focusing on foundation aid at this time. And so what we thought would be best, because it is so hard for us to plan and put a schedule in place when we don't know the number of teachers and support staff, therapists that we're going to have. So we thought we would use some kind of number based on the information that we have been receiving. So we're going to kind of go with a conservative middle approach. And, we've been hearing 10-20% cuts. Do we really believe that's going to happen? It shouldn't, because it would be disproportionately impactful on education. We would be carrying by far the largest burden of the deficit. And so it doesn't seem probable that would happen. So we thought maybe if we used a 10% reduction in our foundation aid, just to give us a starting point for us to move forward. And so what I wanted to share with you, the board, what our goal is to try to work within the parameters of our budget and minimize any reductions of positions or programs by utilizing like attrition as people are retiring and we have an opportunity to change programs without impacting employees. Now, I can't say that that's going to happen, but we're hopeful by using a balance between adjusting some of the things we're doing in different departments and in different areas, and then also looking at what our reserves are like. Can we come up with that 10% cut, which would be about $480,000? Joanne, correct? Yeah, about 480.
About that.
Yeah, about $480,000 of a reduction, across the district in a way that would be the least impactful on the classroom and our teaching and support staff, and looking at other ways that we can make adjustments to make up that gap. Because if we don't do something, we go forward and then we're in the middle of the year and then the governor lays some type of cut on us, it will be very, very, very difficult to make adjustments.
Reminds me of the old days of freezing, early in the fall, where we said, okay, we're gonna, but I appreciate that approach to the extent you're able to, not make replacements like that, so that you can sort of make those savings in anticipation of those cuts coming on down the road. As long as the district is, can stay operational without that, I think that's the best approach.
Brian, 10% cut you said that was equal to 480,000 approximately?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
That's 10% cut of our foundation aid, Terry. That's
Right.
not our
Yeah.
total
Just
aid.
foundation, yeah, just foundation.
You know, and so it's, and again, I'm only going off the information that I have, and that does change frequently. And, you know, at one point there was some discussion about 20%, and then it was 20% of your entire aid package. And then it was, you know, so it goes on and on. It appears that will be just associated with foundation aid, but again, that could change, and it could be something else, some different formula. But we just thought, at least we looked at a chunk of money and said, how can we save this, and kind of put it on the side. And then if something doesn't happen, or if it comes in less than that, then we can kind of move forward and do some of the other things that we would like to do. You know, so that's
Latest guidance.
looking down the road a couple of years too. What's I'm sorry, John?
What's the latest guidance on how much foundation? The 10%, was that what you're hearing?
Yeah, you know, that's what I was saying, is when we were talking, and I meet with Dave and all the superintendents at least once a week to talk about these issues and the things that are changing, the executive orders and all those types of things. Like today, we just met today, and he spoke about this executive order for these meetings, you know, and something needs to get done. And so hopefully they'll get it done this week so that people can continue to meet in this capacity. So, so we talk about the aid, and so Dave has some insight into what he thinks it may be. And he's saying, but I really can't say for sure that this is where the cut is going to be. Is it going to be from foundation aid? They may look at wealth ratio. You know, John, they may change the form. I don't know. But what we're thinking is that this is what we've heard so far. So we're going to use that kind of as our like a guide right now, make some choices so that the building principals especially can move forward in terms of scheduling and programming.
No, it makes sense. That's your latest guidance. That's what you got to go with.
Yeah, right. It's just the best guess. So yeah, it's not great. So good. I'm glad. I just wanted to talk to you about that. You know, on the agenda you'll see today, I just wanted to bring it up, or we could talk about it later, is establishing a retreat. And when I was planning with Mary Beth and Jess, we talked about maybe, you know, what can we do? Right now it would be very difficult, obviously, for us to have a retreat other than another like a Google Meet like this. But we thought maybe we could do something around the reopening of school. You know, we are, and so maybe I'll go into that now, is that we are making some progress, and I'm very pleased that 3 of our employees, Kim Crowley-Brown, Matt Brown, and John Swinich, were selected to sit on the regional forum. And so they're planning with this agency that's from Pittsburgh that handled the Katrina aftermath, like bringing people back after Hurricane Katrina. So they're used to these type of disastrous issues, and they help you to really look at it from a large global perspective, because I'll be quite honest, educators want to get into the weeds. You know, they want to know, they want to talk about what's going to happen when the kid walks into the classroom, and are they going to wear a mask and those kinds of things. And we're nowhere near that. And so they've been doing a great job. And then Lisa Brown was actually selected to sit on the state level board for regional reopening. And so we're very fortunate to have those people on those committees, and because they're getting that knowledge firsthand. And that's going to be the guiding document, along with the governor's guidance that should be out, they said, July 13th. So what we're thinking will happen is that's when we'll be engaging the sub task forces. So you'll be getting an invitation to sit on one of those subgroups, because I think all the board members were interested in serving in some capacity. But then what I thought when we were talking about a retreat, to think about a retreat around professional development or something, I'll be quite honest, is not a good time for that stuff. But maybe we could have a retreat just to do some planning around the reopening of school, you know, so that the board is well informed. As you know, you sit on your individual task force, then we could come together in a retreat format, and then, you know, have a larger scope conversation about this is where we're headed. And so, you know what, I asked Matt Brown to kind of maybe give us a little bit of an update, because they've met several times. And again, I think the people who are coordinating it they're doing a really good job of keeping people focused and keeping people responsible, right, Matt? He said they're pretty tough on them. They're pretty demanding, and you know, they got to get their work done. But that's really important because we have such limited time to pull this together. And so he's going to talk about the considerations that we're looking at. And so, Matt, why don't I turn it over to you?
Sure.
Sure. Yeah. Brian said it right. They call every one of our meetings, they call them sprints, because literally that's what it is. I feel like Ian Russ, like sprinting, like just flying down the track, because our meetings are never more than 2 hours. But by the time you're done, it's like you just want to take a nap, like you're done for the day, because it's just that fast paced. But there's a company, the company's called Education Elements. They're out of Pittsburgh. And like Brian said, they helped school districts in the aftermath of Katrina and other things in the past that have come up more localized around the country. They're working with several districts right now, with the COVID-19. And what it is I believe there's 37 of us from the Erie 2, a bunch, there's superintendents, there's principals, there's teachers, mainly a majority of principals and teachers, but there's a really good mix of people that are on it. And really, we go by the 4 core values. First and foremost for all of this is equity. That's always the first and foremost, as well as safety. They're kind of hand in hand, equity and safety, as well as collaboration and communication. So our goal by July 13th is to have some sort of document on recommendations from that committee to give to all of the districts. And we're going to separate them with like, here's the must do's, and then here are the should do's or would be nice to do's. So all the districts will receive the same document and then be able to use that as a guide, but also be able to make it their own. Because obviously Sherman is a lot different than East Aurora, the rural and there's a lot of districts here. So what they've done is we're preparing right now for 3 scenarios. The first scenario is that all of the students, 100% of students, faculty, and staff are in person. The second scenario is 100% of the students, faculty, and staff will be remote. And then the third scenario is what they're calling a hybrid, and that's some sort of combination of those two. The one thing that I have learned, and obviously there's been no official word by any means, but they're pretty confident that we're probably going to see all 3 of those scenarios at some point next year. So it's important for us to be well planned for each of those scenarios. So what they've done is they've taken the 37 members and they broke us into groups. And we have obviously had some choice in that as well. And so the group I'm sitting on is teaching and instruction. There's also student support and learning, which is more special education, RTI process, things like that. And then we have wellness, which is more of that social, emotional wellness. And then operations, which is kind of more the logistics. So my group, we met today for a few hours, and we're really just we've identified like the 5 main boulders in our bucket, we're calling them, that we're really honing in on as far as instruction goes. So that's where we're at right now. We have another meeting this week. We have 3 meetings next week. And then we meet the 13th, hopefully is our final meeting where we're going to have the document ready for the districts, to take a look at and go from there. But it's been a very interesting process. And Kim Crowley-Brown and John Swinich have just been amazing as well. As you all know, they're 2 of the best, and their insights have been extremely helpful.
Yeah. No, yeah,
So-
go ahead.
So is the plan to have everyone in Erie 2 do something very similar?
The plan is that we're going to have these like, we're calling them boulders. Okay. So picture the way they explained it, picture a big bucket or a jar, and the big boulders are those really big, the big ticket items. And then there's gravel and little rocks, and then there's sand, which is all little fine details. The way we looked at it is there should be some consistency in our region as far as those big boulders. Like, we're all doing these big things somewhat in unison or somewhat together. And then all of those little details, like the sand, as they're calling them, that's where the districts are going to do what works well for that district. For example, the one school district that we were talking about, they have 60% of their students don't even have internet access, only because it's not even offered. Like, they have no ability to even get the internet access. Whether or not they can afford it doesn't even matter. So obviously that district, their plan is going to look a lot different than our plan, when we have all of our students who have Chromebook and have access to the internet. So but the overall hierarchy is that all the districts will receive that same recommendation to then go through and make our own.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing that there's any notion that there can be equitable
Yeah.
education when they can't have internet access.
Right.
It's
Right.
remarkable. But
Yeah.
well, thank you for your hard
I
work
will
on
say
that.
it's opened my eyes to a lot, of what
Yeah.
a lot of different districts are facing, for sure.
So
Yes, no.
I think, Brian, that do
Go
we
ahead.
have a time frame on when you're thinking that retreat might?
Yeah, so I'm just looking at my calendar right now. Let me take a look at that. So we're going to get something like we think the 13th. So I'm thinking maybe the week of the 20th, maybe the 22nd or 23rd, something like that. And we could do this when it's we could do it during the day if that's convenient for you. We could do it in the evening. And so that would be like an open session, but it would be more of a work session. So all we would do is gather in like a retreat format and just talk about here's the plan so far, because I'm trying to think that we probably want to mark maybe schedule some of the task force work the week of the 13th, maybe into the beginning of the week of the 20th, and then we could follow up at the end of the week of the 20th, maybe the 23rd or 24th or 22nd. And I hate to push it, but that only leaves us like 5 weeks out from the opening of school. So, it's
I'm in the wrong calendar year.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
like looking at 2021, and I'm like, that's a Friday. So the week of the 20th, the 23rd would be a Thursday. The 22nd is a Wednesday. So maybe the 23rd, that Thursday. Are folks available on the 23rd?
23rd works for me, and I can do afternoon or evening.
It works for me too. Either or.
23rd works for me also.
Works for me.
as well.
Okay.
We're
Well, I think you
talking
got a
about
date. That's pretty. John, I'm sorry.
It works for me, but we're talking about on Zoom, not in person. Is that correct?
Yeah, right, John. We would do it like another meeting like this, right?
23rd works.
So,
Do you want to do something like at noon, Mary Beth? You want us to do something in the evening, or?
whatever your pleasure is, Brian. I think if all of us can make it in an afternoon, I think it's gonna be has the potential to be a little more lengthy than just a couple hours. And I think it might be a good idea to start a little earlier.
Does 12 o'clock work for everyone?
Can we go just a little bit later?
Yeah, sure. 1 o'clock. Jess, is
1
that better?
o'clock. 1 o'clock is great if that works for everybody.
Works for me.
Why don't we plan on that?
Okay.
And I know that we had stopped and started on the retreat for, oh gosh, like a year and a half, but I had suggested to Brian that because we're all going to need to be interested in the reopening of school and what that's going to look like, that perhaps this is a better use of our retreat time.
It's a great idea, Mary
At
Beth.
least now, and then, if we decide we want to come back to some of the issues we were hoping to cover on the one that got, kept getting bumped in January, that we could, revisit something in the spring. But I do think that this would be a good use of our time.
Yeah. And Terry, would you mind ordering some cookies?
No, I do mind. Yes, I do mind. I'm hoping the third time is the charm, and it's actually going to go through for the third time.
Can I ask, I may need to speak to the board in executive session. Do you think we could just maybe start executive session at 1 and then start the retreat at 1:30?
That's fine.
Sure. I actually would suggest we have an hour executive session.
Okay.
We could
Oh, yeah,
that
that's
night,
good.
so
Yep.
that
Okay.
afternoon. So if we could start everything at 1, start the executive session at 1 and the retreat at 2.
Jackie, can you do that?
Is Jackie with us?
Jackie there?
Jackie's muted.
Oh, she is. Jack, you're muted.
I'm talking to myself here. So I only got a second to do that.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So we'll do an executive session at 1 to 2 and then 2 to, like maybe 5. Yeah. 3
Okay.
Would be a work
That's-
session.
Yeah, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Good. Okay, thank you. All right,
We're
very
still on
good.
your comments.
I'm sorry?
We're still on your superintendent's
Yeah,
comments.
yeah. So you know what? Yeah, just you know, some of the questions that have been coming up too, like, and so that's where we've been. We've met with our teams in task force. We've met with all the grade level leaders and department chairs, all the department areas as well. As we were coming to the conclusion of school, to kind of get a debrief on how things went over the previous 3 months. And I would say that, you know, we've made a lot of progress from March to June. I think teachers in general were feeling good about it. There were a number of questions in terms of like, how do we continue to improve engagement? How do we, accountability and those types of things. If we come back, especially in a remote model for September, how do we make sure that we're able to keep up with the content, especially in certain areas, as we look towards the responsibility at the high school for the regents? Is that still going to be in place if we do go to a remote model from the beginning? May not. So there were a lot of questions around that, and some of that will only happen in time as we move through the process. And as Matt was saying, the idea of those rolling outages, we may be here, we may go to a blended model, we may be totally remote, and that may ebb and flow. They're saying at least through the first half of the year, and maybe possibly throughout the entire school year. And so we have to be ready for all of that. And so then we talked a little bit about like just employees and bringing people back, and I would say the majority of people are really looking forward to coming back because they want to be here. They want to see their students, especially those students, I think, that have special needs. We saw a particular issue in that area. Just delivering those services are particularly challenging in a remote model. So we've talked about some options for those students. Can those programs look different? And they may indeed look differently. And so that's been part of it. But then also the fact of, we certain employees may have certain issues related to their own personal health. The idea of being back on campus. Mark has been doing a really great job of trying to help people to understand how those transitions go. We've been transitioning back slowly with our full-time employees. So they were here periodically, some more than others, and now they're coming back on a more regular schedule. We're hoping after the holiday to be here as I guess in terms of like kind of testing the waters and seeing how that goes. But again, of course, there's going to be some flexibility because everybody's circumstance is a little different, and especially those people who have certain maybe are compromised in certain ways. We'll be treating that completely differently. And so, Mark, I don't know if you have any comments on that at all, or
the guidance continues to change, and we continue to watch it. There are questions about obviously students returning, especially medically frail students. There's questions about teachers, aides, substitutes. Right now, last week, we brought our B&G back full time. Doug has been leading his crew, kind of getting our campus back and ready, and some safety markers and signage and plexiglass. We still have a lot to go, but we're getting there. This week was kind of a soft opening for our clerical staff to kind of work with Doug's crew on, okay, I need this here, or I need a glass there, that type of stuff. And we're technically reopening our campuses with what we're going to call a grand reopening on Monday. And that allows our administrators, our clerical, and also in very limited ways, some of our teachers to begin working if they need to work on campus. There's a lot of protocols that we need to follow, and a lot of training and education that we're rolling out. We're kind of an example of how to do it, I found out today, so that's good. But that also means we're kind of leading the charge. And the reality is the situation is so fluid and can change on a dime, both in terms of government regulations, but also in terms of the path of the virus. So we're just slow and steady is going to win this race. Our big piece is, as we move through June to July to August, we need to increase our presence on campus, because if kids come back, we need to be calm and confident presence is for them, and we need to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row. So we have a plan to just kind of gradually move towards that as a whole. And then I am working individually with people who are struggling for very legitimate reasons to come back, and we'll continue to work with them.
So Mark,
Thank you for that, Mark.
Yep,
Mark,
I'm sorry.
are we going to, by chance, survey the teachers or even the families to see if we
Yep.
do come back, if they're even going to, like, and one parent may say, no, my kid isn't going to come back. So do we
Yep,
have any
so-
idea?
Mark, can I just jump in there, Mark?
Please.
Yeah, just, you know what, Terry, there's a couple things. We participated in the statewide thought exchange and we got those results. So we'll be sharing that but Mark is also putting together a survey for our local parents that'll be going out on Monday or Tuesday of next week. So tomorrow I'll be sending out kind of a thank you to our parents in regard to the budget and what that means that the budget has passed for us moving forward. I'll also explain some of the complexity that we're dealing with in regard to the governor and that lack of information around our aid and how that may impact us. I'm going to do and I'm not exactly how sure all this is going to come out. And then I'm going to do a brief review of what Matt has done in the forum to say, here's some of the progress we're making, and here's some of the things that we're considering in terms of options. You know, this is what it may look like. And then we're going to, and then we're going to send out the thought exchange results statewide. And then we're going to ask our parents to complete a survey locally so that we have that information when we go into the next week of the 13th. As we get the information from the regional forums, we're going to use that parent information to guide us as well. And those are the types of questions that will be in that survey.
Good.
I had two thoughts. I just passed this on. Are we going to need more custodians in order to clean to the extent that it's going to be needed? Mark's going, yes, he's nodding. That seems like a big deal that we may need to hire there. And the sooner that we can solidify which way we're going and get that to parents, because they're going to have to make employment decisions.
Yes.
Yeah, and a lot of what Terry was asking, and Brian's point's exactly right. We want to present a little bit of a plan and ask parents how they feel about that, and also get a little further into the summer before we do that, because right now parents are ready to send their kids back no matter what, because they've been home with them.
I think
the
they
last
send them
summer.
back now.
Right. So our thought was send a survey out that says what would be important for you to send your child back, then take that information, come up with a plan, then resurvey them saying, now we've made these adjustments. Right. The problem is, and it's all the work Matt's doing, and Matt and I have talked at length about this, a lot of this is the busy work can feel good, but in some ways it's either wasted work or wasted waiting, because we can tell parents what our plan is, but if there's a huge spike on August 25th, and so I think Matt's plan is correct, and he said it numerous times, there is no plan. It's here's what we're going to do in this scenario, here's what we're going to do in that scenario, here's what we're going to do in this scenario, and then the big one is always the rolling closure. So really, there's 4 plans that we need to have parents comfortable with, and they have to understand that we are going to pivot between those plans, because a big spike, and then to Terry's point of sending the kids back, if it's a small handful, is it technically homeschooling? Or if we hit a critical mass, do we have a responsibility to educate them? If we have a school or a class or a building on quarantine, what's that responsibility there? So these are those things we're talking about. But I think there's not going to be on August 15th, we're telling you what we're doing September 1st. It's here's the tools that we've put in our toolbox.
Well, and the other thing I think people have to understand is what we say we're doing on September 1 might be very different than what happens on October 1.
Yes,
correct.
And that is it's going to be an ongoing process until there's a vaccine, frankly.
Absolutely. I think if people are given facts of what to expect, they can accept fluidity. They can accept the fact that there's going to be a ebb and flow with something like this until we have a vaccine. I agree. But I think that's perfect. Sounds good.
That's our intention, Judy, is to do exactly that. That here are the 4 options we're considering right now. As we get closer to September 1st, as Mary Beth said, this will be the option. But October 1st may be different. And the one thing that parents are struggling with is say we go, there's some discussion about, I really think that everybody coming back September 1st isn't going to happen. So we can kind of take that one and put it off to the side right now, because it's highly unlikely that we're going to see things change enough in order to make that possible, because of the nature of social distancing and transportation and all those other things that we have to accommodate. But one thing that they have been concerned about that we're trying to is the search for school age childcare. And so if we come back on an everyday model, like say your family comes back on ACE day and on BDF they're doing their work remotely, well, where are those younger children on those BD and F days?
Exactly.
So the parents are going to need some opportunity to really search out that care. Jerome is working with our local providers, and he's going to see how many of them are able to convert to a childcare model, because many of them are preschool, and how many slots they could possibly provide, and then also work with the county agency that can connect you with childcare throughout the county. And so that's part of this process as well.
I just want to caution you on the choice of language that you use, as opposed to calling them options. Those are scenarios, right? Like those are, not, we aren't sending out a survey to say, which way would you like us to go?
Correct.
It's these 4 scenarios are going to take place, not because East Aurora says we're going to have all of our kids back, or we're not going to have them back and they're all going to work remotely. That guidance and those protocols are going to come from the governor's office and the New York State Department of Education. And our hands are largely going to be tied. We just have to be ready to be in any one of those scenarios at any given time throughout the school year.
Right. And that's the survey, and it's a very good point, Mary Beth. And the survey is going to be focused on what would be most important to you as a parent in this scenario. So we can make sure, to go back to Matt Brown's analogy, some of that pebble or sand that's unique to us, because working in a small community, walkability, those type of things, we need to say, we need to make sure that this question is explained in the scenario, or this whatever.
Yeah.
So that's really the focus of it. So that'll come out next week, and we'll collect that through next week, and then Matt will finish authoring his master document for the state of education in Western New York, and single-handedly, and we'll lay the general state feedback, the regional task force that Matt's on, and our East Aurora feedback. We're going to lay that all on top of each other, and that's when we're going to break into those subcommittees of the task force to begin kind of chewing on those exact things.
Okay. I still have more, and I'd like to go over to something that is really good to talk about, our graduation ceremony. And then I have a few other things that I had some questions from board members that I'll answer right after this. But I just want to thank Bill and the whole crew at the high school for, I think, maybe putting on the best graduation ceremony ever. It was really special, and I've been to a lot of them, and I have to say this may be one of the most unique and touching, and it just was really great to see all 151 cars in the parking lot. When I give an address every year, and when I stood up to the podium and I looked out, I said, wow, this is really fantastic. All people in all kinds of Jeeps and open, convertibles and stuff like that. And just a really great way to celebrate. And we were able to allow the kids to come up and individually accept their diploma, maintaining all the proper social distancing. And it was an incredible amount of work. And Bill spent countless hours, and just really grateful for everything that he did, and for providing them with such an exciting and unique experience, something that they'll never forget. And not only that, but all the other things that led up to graduation. The senior class bought a boulder that all the kids put their handprints on and signed. The PTO, they did the banners on Main Street, which was really quite unique and special. And they also gave out a senior gift, and it was just there's more and more than that, and Bill can share, but I just want to thank him just for his leadership. It was really a daunting task, and it couldn't have gone any better. It went off without a hitch, and it was just a lot of fun. It was great.
I just want to jump in there, Brian, because my daughter graduated, and so we got to participate in that ceremony. And I can tell you all the feedback I've heard, it really was a wonderful day. It was a great celebration. I knew it would be unique and it would be memorable, and Bill and Sal and the committee, the high school students that had participated in terms of their voice of being able to have graduation be how they wanted it. It really was impressive. It was just appropriate and very fun. It was really fun for the families to partake in it, for them to be able to decorate their cars and show up and really celebrate with smiles on their faces. And I was most impressed too with the student speakers this year. Each of the students did a fantastic job in terms of delivering their address to their classmates, and it was impressive all around. And the parade at the end with the community coming out, it was. I want to thank everybody that came out to cheer on our graduates, and I'm sure you're aware the parade didn't end at the circle. They looped around and went back down around Main Street, and it was really nice to be able to see those kids be able to wave to one another and celebrate with their classmates. It was everyone that in my car, I will tell you, said, "Boy, that's the best graduation certainly that I've been to, and it was the best graduation that my family had witnessed." So it was just kudos to Mr. Roberts and his crew at the high school and everyone who participated in making that happen. Thank you all very much. I'm going to get a little emotional because it was really, really exciting. It was fun.
It was really, yeah, it was very nice. It was, the parade was really fun because Bill and I were at the end. And so when they looped around, we got to see every one of the graduates come back up and we got to say hello to them. And it was just really, it was just super fun. It wasn't supposed to go that way, but it was.
Yeah.
When they got to
that number one car,
they come back up Main Street, which was really great. And yeah, it was really a special, just a fun thing. And yeah, Bill, I just know how much was involved and the production company that helped us out. Everybody could see, like the screens, they could see the stage. It was just really, really well done. It's just a great, great experience. So thank you, Bill.
Yeah, maybe Brian, it would be appropriate because as much as I appreciate the accolades, it was, I think, one of the most rewarding parts of this experience was the teamwork. And I always knew that I was surrounded by great people, but a situation like this sheds a new light on it. And it starts with Brian and Mary Beth. I mean, 2 months ago, I think we started talking about this and it sounded like a crazy idea at the time, but the two of you supported the unique ideas that we had. And when you talk about emotions, Mary Beth, I was walking we had about 40 teachers lined up at the entrance. The American flag was draped down. The cars were coming in. The teachers were cheering. And at that point, it hit me, after months of what we've been dealing with, it was just the perfect moment to see our families arriving and our teachers cheering. And that was the start of a fantastic day. But if I could just take a minute beyond Brian and Mary Beth, just thanking specifically our teachers, Elka Modgill and Chris Cummins, teacher aide Nick Campoli, our head custodian Scott Clare, Tom Kegler, talking about surrounding me with great people, Suzanne Sedfeld, Sue Lamb, Tammy Weir, Doug and his crew, Rick and Dennis and their crew, Mark and Matt Leibrock and Joanne, Terry's photo studio. If you have a chance, go online. The password is capital EAHS 2020, and you can see all the pictures. And I think it paints a beautiful picture of everything that took place over the last couple of months at East Aurora High School. East Aurora Police Department, the fire department, all the residents and board members. I apologize that you couldn't be there for the ceremony. But it was great to see some of you were online and also part of the parade. Our parents, our PTO, and the students, and especially that student leadership team, they were passionate about what they wanted in the ceremony. And Brian and Mary Beth and I, worked with that to create something that was, I guess, respectful of the situation that we're in, but also respectful of what their desires were. So again, there's many more people, but I think a sense of the team effort that this took, and I'm very grateful.
Hey, and Bill, if you would be kind enough to maybe email the Board of Education the Terry's Photo Studio link.
Sure.
And the password, because she did, Dan, I know you had asked about, the overhead images, but she had actually, I won't say how, but managed to capture some pictures of the overview of the parking lot, with all the cars, placed. I think that it's in about 3 photographs that you get the full sense of how distant those cars were, and they took up the whole photograph. So beyond just the parking map that we had submitted, I think there's some pictures out there that give you the full flavor of the decorations that people had put up in their cars, and just how visually it looked from the stage.
And you know what, Bill, you mentioned, and I mentioned them in my address too, is the graduation planning committee. I have to say that, Bill would bring back information to me, and he'd say, okay, I got a crazy idea for you, and we'd work through it together. And I liked the crazy ideas as much as he did. But what I was most impressed with, I had a chance to meet with Bill and the team, and the kids were there talking about like the next steps, what else they were trying to accomplish. And what was so amazing to me is their positive energy. Through the whole process, they never complained. They never said, Mr. Ross, this is unfair. They just approached it with this, like I said, this positive energy and perseverance. And we're going to do this really well. It's going to be great. It's going to be exciting, and everybody's going to love it. And that's exactly what happened. And, like I said, those skills and what they learned through this process, in many ways, I would say it's more important than their education or their academics. But in many ways, that's what helps you to get through life. Those types of skills, when the going get tough, the tough get going. And that's exactly what happened. They were just really impressive, really, and a fun group of kids, just funny. And
so I think it demonstrates we taught them well, and boy, yeah, they had a very quick opportunity to put those skills to the test, and boy, they came through.
Yeah, it's just
made us all proud.
Important piece. The ability to cope is so important, and they really knocked it out of the park. Well, thanks, Bill. So okay, now on to more other stuff. So just a few other questions about our facilities. We've been having some issues around the facilities, and I got another executive order, and he said, the governor said that we can open up our facilities to the public, but we need to provide supervision of those facilities. And that's just nothing, that's just something we cannot do. We don't have the staff to supervise our courts and our track and our fields. So we're and they've been shut down. We've been having some issues with community members using that. So I'd just like to get that message out. I'm going to be sending out a blast, just very simply, that our facilities are closed to our students and to the public until further notice. And I'll reference the executive order and why we're not able to do that at this time. So if I can just ask the public to remain off our grounds, because the social distancing is critically important. And when we're in doing contact sports, or we're on the field playing soccer, or we're running on the track, or we're on the tennis courts, we're just not able to maintain that supervision. So we need to keep the facilities closed at this time. And I know people are very disappointed by that. And but again, as Mary Beth said, there's scenarios, and these directions are coming from the state, from the governor's office specifically, but also through state ed and through the Department of Health. And so, we're just obligated to follow that and create the safest environment that we possibly can. And so I ask people, just not to be on our campus and not to use our facilities at this time.
And Brian, is that posted up there so that people are aware of that? You know, if they're not seeing this, so that there's no question, everyone needs to know
Yep.
this is all the community, our sports teams, everybody, that they're not supposed to be using our facilities. Is that correct?
Yep, they just added more signs today.
Okay.
Yep, there were posted signs. I had reports people are using our ball diamond. They're not supposed to be on that as well. Somebody called me that it was being used. So, what can we do to stop that?
Right.
We can't wrap it in, cellophane or something. But we're going to lock the gates to the tennis courts. We're going to remove all the nets. Those kinds of things. Whatever we can do to minimize that engagement. And I do, you can use the town facilities. The town facilities are open. That's my understanding. And so people can use those facilities, but our facilities are, like most things where we run under different terms and conditions that the governor sets those for schools, which are very different than the other municipalities. So that's one thing about our facilities. Food service, we sent out a survey to our families about food service over the summer. The last time I knew, we had about 100 families that were interested in participating. Mark, has that changed? Probably.
It's about 100 children, about 45 families.
Oh, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you.
That's
Yep.
okay.
So that's where we are right now. So we're working with Personal Touch, and they're preparing to start delivering meals the week of the 6th.
Every Tuesday and Friday, we're not delivering meals. We have pickup. And then there's a small number of families who cannot pick up, either due to the parents working or no reliable transportation. So we're working on a method to get the food to them for that very small number, but most folks will come every Tuesday, Friday. Those folks will continue to get 7 breakfasts and 7 lunches per week, per child, the same we've been doing. And that service remains open and free. So as folks find out about it, anyone who's watching out there in TV land, or if you hear of people that it would benefit, they can sign up for that service. It would be a pickup service 2 days a week, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Is that being paid for in a different way than the food service that we've had for the last 3 months?
I know that we're not paying for it. Joanne knows how it's being paid for, but it's not local money. I know that.
It's being funded through the federal and state governments.
So similar to the way the previous one was funded.
Correct.
Thank you.
So let me move on. Food service, summer school, really excited about it. We're providing summer school for students with special needs, and we have one on our campus, which is really great. And they were again going to go remote at the end. The governor gave us the opportunity to switch to a live or blended model, and our BOCES has decided to go with the blended model, which is really great. And we're honestly one of the only BOCES in the state, I believe, that has decided to do that. Most of them went remote because of the timing. There was so little time to pull it together, and there's so many things that they have to check off the list to make sure they're in compliance. But they did it, and I have to say, Danielle O'Connor, who's the assistant superintendent at our BOCES, fantastic. It's just done a fantastic job developing the plan for our students.
So who runs it, Brian? Is it being run by our district or by BOCES?
It's being run by BOCES, and we're one of the sites, though, Dan. We're offering classes at Parkdale.
At Parkdale,
it's going to be run through BOCES.
You know how many, Brian?
I'm sorry. How many students do you have?
How many classes are at Parkdale are we anticipating?
4 classes. BOCES.
There's going to be 7, 4 BOCES and 3 SIRs, I think.
Well, right. Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Yes, it's 4 BOCES self-contained classes, and then there are 3 days a week where our students will be coming in for an hour of ELA or reading and math, an hour for math, and then any related services that they may have with OT, PT, or speech.
So this is all being run by BOCES, though, all 7 of those classrooms?
Yes, sir.
So they have developed the protocols necessary for teachers and students to enter the buildings and to interact with each other, and to and we're responsible for what part of this?
Nothing other than just general interaction with them. And to be blunt, I'm very excited that they're doing this because I get to go over and spy how they're doing it, so we could replicate it for our kids. But we're just the landlords. They are responsible for it all. They may have to obviously, interact with us in minimal but understandable ways.
Yeah.
But
Are they responsible for the cleaning of the space as well?
Doug, I don't know that one.
No, we'll be cleaning it. We'll be cleaning.
And are there protocols in place for
Yes.
sanitizing that space throughout the day and then at the end of the day?
Yes, in the protocol. Yep.
Another point of interest, there are many teachers that are East Aurora teachers that will be working for BOCES this summer, as well as aides in this program at Parkdale.
Be a nice trial run.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's really a great thing because it serves two purposes. First and foremost, we really need this time for our students that are attending these programs to be here with their teachers because of the loss that they experienced over the previous 3 months. And so that regression is something that we really need to address. And I'm really excited about what they pulled together. I'll tell you this, from what I've seen and what we've talked about, I'm very impressed with the detail. And like what you're saying is the security, this class size. I think class size are going to be, 4 or 5, very, very small classes. Like, again, a nice trial to see what that's going to look like. Jess will be at school, of course, but they have their own principal for these programs as well. But Jess will be there to provide support throughout the day if necessary. But it's just a very exciting process for us to kind of trial it out as we prepare to hopefully open in September.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, really, really great. So that's summer school athletic teams right now. Nothing much happening on the athletic field. Well, okay, so they're preparing but there's so many logistical issues, especially with contact sports. Like in the fall, we're looking at soccer, football, field hockey, volleyball, right? Volleyball, let's see, tennis. There's just a lot of contact. So they're really, really struggling with how is that going to work, so we're just waiting to hear from the task force that's looking at athletics and the possibility of it reopening for the fall. Again, like cross country, we got runners too. That may be one area, or even tennis. It is a little easier to separate people, especially like singles. You got one person on each side of the net. Those sports are a little bit more, I guess, reasonable in terms of making those adjustments. But at this point in time, we haven't heard anything definitive, so it's still a work in progress to see how they can possibly minimize the contact, minimize the spreading of germs and those types of things.
Are they thinking they might do it sport by sport?
I don't know that. I would think that would be hard to. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
I'd be shocked if it went that route. I kind of had thought it would be a wholesale. We're going to run athletics, or no, we're not.
Right. And I don't know. Bill, have you heard anything about that?
Not on a high school level, obviously, through rec departments and little leagues and things like that, but not through our school sports yet. No.
Yeah, it's up in the air. Again, I think they're struggling with how to make it happen under their current limitations, and I think what's happening in our area is very positive in terms of the number of cases. But I think nationwide, I think they said today was 40 states are seeing increases in the 40 states now are seeing increases in the number of cases. So it's not going well.
Okay.
So, and let's see what else I have. Community use, staff development was a question about staff development. Again, what we'll do is we'll be preparing for staff development probably in August as we start getting information from the task force, and then our own internal task force starts working with the information from the regional task force. We have our retreat, and then what we'll do is we'll be looking to provide professional development, because had a number of teachers as I was meeting with them throughout the spring, talk to me about, the concepts of online instruction is very different. There's many techniques that are different than direct live instruction in your classroom. So having some of those types of things available, just the idea of even the utilization of the Google Classroom. There's so many elements, and then there's varying abilities within our staff. And so I could see it even in my meetings with like certain departments or certain grade levels, they were sharing ideas right when, we were speaking. And some people have just been at it longer. They have a few more tricks in their bag, and they're sharing those out. And then what we talked about too is then ultimately coming to some kind of, as much as we can, some agreement that these are the techniques or technologies we'll use, in across the high school. Here's the 4 or 5, whatever it is, applications that are going to be used, and this is how the process is going to be happen for submitting work. So things are happening in a consistent basis, no matter which classroom we are. Now, is that going to be perfect? Of course it isn't. But that was like one of the outcomes, is that we have to bring up more consistency to the process for students and for teachers. Because students are dropping their work in all different places, some through email, some through Dropbox, whatever it may be, and the teacher doesn't know where it is. And so we're going to try to bring as much consistency across the board as we can, even at the lower levels as well.
I think the faculty would be appreciative of that uniformity as much as the students would be. That there would be a willingness to learn from your colleagues as to what might be the best practice.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it's, there's a lot of good things that are coming out of it too. And many of the departments and grade levels tell me that, we've become closer as a team because we're just able to spend more time together. When they're here, their days are busy. They're teaching 5 subjects. They got a study hall, those kinds of things. So they're all moving in different directions. They have some common planning time, but, now they're meeting several times a week, sometimes every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And so from those opportunities has just kind of deepened their relationships and their understanding about how each other is teaching, what content is most important, all kinds of stuff like that. So there are some good things that are happening. Got to remain focused on that too.
Right.
And so let's see. I think that kind of takes care of all the questions. Any other questions from the board at all about things that are going on? Okay. All right. I think that's it. Sorry, that was a long one.
It was a long superintendent's comments.
There's a lot of stuff.
All right.
Oh, are we still
I'm
on
gonna cut you
superintendent?
off.
Yeah, superintendent's comments, Dan.
I apologize because I had to step away for about a half an hour. We had a little emergency here in the house, but now I'm glad that I now know where we are on the agenda. Thank you.
All right, we are moving on to board presidents and board members' comments and committee reports. Other than the kudos for the graduation and the thanks for the end of the year send-offs for all the students, I didn't have anything further. Jessica, did you?
No, nothing further. Just congrats, everyone. As a not yet parent of a graduate, it was really impressive to see what everyone can pull off. Speeches were fantastic. Congrats, Bill and Brian and all of your teams, and to the students. It was great to be participating as a community member on the street. And I will admit there were tears streaming down my face. It was great to see all those kids. It was fantastic. Nicely done.
Thank you. Terry O'Weiler.
I just wanted to echo what everyone has said about graduation. I actually watched it live in my car driving back from Delaware, and I started at 9 and turned it off at 12:34. So everyone in my family got to hear all the speeches and see all the cars as they went by and how they were decorated. I love the kid who had the 2 lacrosse sticks on the top of his car. Speeches were, as Mary Beth said, they were amazing. They were really, really, really good. It was nice to finally meet Dirty Pig and Superman and all the other things that Mr. Heisner has in his classroom that I've heard so much about. It was just an incredible it looked like it was an incredible event, and I wasn't even there, and I was emotional. And again, I wasn't even there, and I didn't have a child graduating. But you could see the time and the effort that was put into this graduation ceremony. So kudos to anyone and everyone who was involved with this, because so many families and students in this community were so incredibly happy that day. So thank you very much.
Let me just jump in there. Yeah, somebody said to me yesterday, they said, you've made a lot of people very, very happy. And I'm like this. That doesn't happen very, very often. I'm going with it. It wasn't me. It was other people, but I'm still saying.
We'll be smiling about that one for a lot of years, I have to say. John Seghetti.
No comments.
All right. Judy Malice.
I stood across from the middle school watching the parade, and I have to say the same thing Terry said. I couldn't help but have tears running down my face because they were so adorable. They were just so happy. I thought, what a memory. This is going to be with them forever. I think it was very unique, very well done, and I think you really made a lot of people happy. I was thrilled.
Mr. Brunson.
Yes, ditto. I watched it remotely, and I was glued to the computer screen for the whole time. It was wonderful. I was impressed by the speakers. They were phenomenal. The speakers are always good, but this year they were particularly poignant, I thought, and appropriately lighthearted in many ways. The other thing I would just say is that I think a lot more people had the opportunity to participate in graduation than would have in the normal, more formal method. There were more people in those cars that could walk across the stage or roll across the stage with their graduate, and there were more people online who were able to hear the speakers and participate as it's happening. So I think in many ways it's a departure that was an improvement. I tend to be old and stodgy. I said, yeah, well, at any rate, so I normally go for the traditional old-fashioned ways of doing things, but I think this was a big improvement, frankly.
Well, Dan, Bill said that's the way he wants to do it every year. He would prefer to.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I'm going to respectfully interrupt, but as I was logging in, I had another parent say, I can read it to you, that hoping that this becomes a new tradition. So, my heart races a little bit when I hear that, but I respect what you're saying, Dan. I agree. And so many things that we had to recreate, we're finding maybe some of them are better, right?
Well, think about this. You did not have to admonish the audience to be quiet when their child's name was mentioned. They could honk their horns and jump up and down, and everybody thought that was great. They had done that inside the auditorium, and it was considered a breach of conduct.
I think you better be careful, because next year's graduation committee is going to be a group of students that might want their graduation in a particular way, Mr. Roberts.
I will say,
they're probably listening to this board meeting.
One of the parents might be here.
I will say the honking of the horns was the most hysterical thing. Anytime someone said something like Brian Russ is introduced, and the honking of the horns, and Bill Roberts, the honking, it was hysterical to hear the honking of the horns.
Well, it's the first time I've ever heard a reference to cheddar cheese resulting in fake cheer coming up in the audience.
He's a great guy. He's a very quiet and well-deserving. He's been a great teacher and just so admired by our students, and just so much beyond his instruction. He's involved in so many ways, and those are the relationships that are most important. Yeah.
Great job.
Kim, Dan, you anything?
Could I just jump in real quick to Dan's point about the added level of engagement? I think as we've talked on the communications subcommittee about different ways we can introduce or involve community members who may not have engagement with the schools, a parade down Main Street is probably a really nice way to do it. I think that was a really nice tie-in for community members to get to come out and see the accomplishments of the kids and just get to be involved in the process.
Thanks, Jess. Kim Daniel, anything?
Just congratulations and wishing all the best to our graduates.
We are now moving on to administrators' comments. I have to go down the line. So, Mr. Plakowitz, anything?
No, I think Mr. Russ talked about the summer program, and we're excited to have that happen, and we're really appreciative to the collaborative effort with Erie 2 BOCES, and they did a wonderful job, and I'm excited to see it working.
Wonderful, thank you. Jessica Lyons?
No, I don't have anything.
Mr. Brown, Matt Brown, anything further?
Sorry, took me a second to get that off. No, nothing further other than that task force information that I already shared.
Okay, and Mr. Liebrock's not with us this evening, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, and then onto the high school, Mr. Roberts.
Nothing further. Thank you, everyone.
Doug Wicks.
I'm all set. Everything is good.
All right. Who am I forgetting?
Rich, last board meeting.
Clement,
Yeah, Jessica's gone.
You look like you're enjoying it a little too much, Richard. There you are.
Yeah. Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
That's okay.
I'll report with my finance report.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Mambretti, anything further from you?
Just quickly, an update. If both Rich and Joanne could be my models, our 1EA gear should be arriving any day now at your house. So that was from that fundraiser that we ran earlier. So today or tomorrow, if the FedEx guy comes, that's what he's coming with. In that, once all that's delivered, we get the check, which we will deliver to the Rock. In addition, Ms. Lyons has a number of leftover books that did not go out with our Eats and Reads program because of the overwhelming generosity of the teacher's desk. And those books will also be going to the Rock to support their early literacy initiative that I know Mr. Brunson has had a hand in, both, I believe, in planning and definitely participating in. So once that check comes in, we're going to throw all these books onto the big blue truck and bring Mr. Russ and the check and the books over to the Rock to kind of keep some sort of engagement and community going for some of these kids who that engagement's going to be a game changer over the summer months. So that should be happening very, very shortly.
Mark, they actually are having a summer program for to help to supplement learning opportunities for the children who are part of their circle of families that they're supporting. So I think those books might come in very handy this summer.
Good, and they'll be there as soon as the check comes, which should be, with the holiday probably next week, I would guess.
Great.
Bring it right over.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts and Dennis. They already sent you the link for the graduation photos on Terry's Photo Studio, so the board just received that just now. Moving on, anybody else? Any other administrator that I overlooked? And moving on to visitors' comments. We didn't receive any visitors' comments for tonight's meeting, but I did get an email from our internal auditor who we anticipate appointing this evening, Tom Panaziani, and he just thanked the board. He could not be here for this evening, but he wanted the board to know that he was appreciative of his anticipated appointment later in the meeting. We can now move on to item 8, reports and board discussion items. Joanne, you're up then for your business office operations and financial reports.
Can we take just a 2-minute break? Can we just take a quick break?
Yeah, sure. We'll just pause for 2 minutes, folks.
Great, thank you. Hey, Jack,
Yes.
you can hear your, are you typing?
That was me. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
right. I got somebody's typing.
Are we all back?
But my keyboard, I think, is silent.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Membretti, are we all back?
Oh, Mark's not back. Doug's here.
We're all signed in, but until pictures come back, I don't know if people are sitting at the chair. I think we're waiting on Dan in terms of the board, and Rich, Jerome, and Bill Roberts in terms of.
Yeah, Bill left.
Okay.
Okay.
So Dan's the only one that's, don't know if, as a board member, if he's present.
I'm back.
There he is.
Okay.
Okay. Then you have your whole board. Yep.
Thank you very much. All right, Joanne, you're up for your business and financial reports.
Okay, thank you. First, I'd like to start by sincerely thanking the business office staff during this remote working, remote learning. They have really done an outstanding job of keeping up with everything and making sure everything was processed on time. So I just wanted to give a shout out to them. Our reports this month are through the end of May. And at that time, we had $8.2 million in the bank. We had expended approximately 77% of our budget, and we had received about 93% of our budget. As of yesterday, we received all the money we were expecting to receive from sales tax and from the state. My staff is currently working on closing the books and posting our accounts payable and our accruals for our revenues. In the school lunch fund, as of the end of May, we were showing revenues over expenditures of about $4,300. But there has been a drastic delay in receiving money from the federal and state for the child nutrition program. So I expect that number is going to change quite a bit by the end of June now. Our capital fund, happy to report, all the checks have been written for the $23.5 million project, and the final cost reports have been filed. So that's great news. We're working on the repair reserve, and the first 100K project is completed, and everybody's been paid and the paperwork's been filed, and we're starting to work on the second 100K project on the beginning stages of developing that. And the only other thing I have is that we are watching on our cash flow very, very closely. And later on in the agenda under board action items, I think it's letter J, we will be, upon your approval, that resolution is so that if we need, because of a cash flow issue, to borrow money, that would allow us to do it if that happens.
Yeah, we act on that later. I think it is item.
I think it's J.
J, and that's to allow for the issuance of revenue anticipation notes.
Correct. Just in case there's slow state aid or slow on taxes being collected, so that we can short-term borrow just to get through the crunch.
Joanne, am I interrupting? Have you finished? Or?
No, I'm done.
Excuse me. Thank you. When I was looking over the agenda, I realized that this was a new item that we have not had in previous. I checked with Jackie to make sure that was the case. So what is different this year that requires us to be prepared for a possible revenue anticipation note?
COVID-19.
Okay,
and
all related to the, yeah. So
and
it's all related
in case.
Yes, the possibility that the governor may reduce our state aid or delay it or something along those lines.
Right.
Could result in a cash shortfall requiring revenue anticipation notes. So it has nothing to do with our own financial status.
No.
Usually revenue anticipation notes are issued by districts that are running short of cash. They don't have much in the way of reserves. They borrow with the thought that, oh, well, we're going to get some future income to pay this back. So that's not the case here. This is only in the unusual circumstance that the state were to not provide us with the amounts that they've promised.
Correct.
We had talked about it a few years ago, Dan. I don't know if you remember when we did have some cash shortfalls and then we ultimately did not need to do that. At the time when we talked about it, though, I know Jeff Stone had said, some districts sort of do that almost as a matter of course to allow for that opportunity if it's necessary. We've never taken that approach, but I think to do it this year is important.
Well, yes, and I agree. It's the right thing to do. I just wanted to be sure that everyone knows publicly that this has nothing to do with the financial status of the district, that we're in sound financial situation, and that we're simply being proactive to be prepared should there be a shortfall in revenues resulting from a delay.
Right.
Joanne,
Anyone else have any questions about that?
I'm assuming a lot of districts are doing the same thing.
Yes, this was, I was on an Erie 1 BOCES business official joint meeting actually with Erie 1 business officials and Erie 2 business officials. And that was a recommendation that was made that we should all do this just in case.
When's the next payment from the state due in? We're done for this year, so is it September or when is it?
The next one would be, yeah, it's September, but we never realized cash then. We usually see cash from the state in December.
We wouldn't anticipate anything before December.
Correct.
Most of our early funds come from local tax revenues. The early state aid is often reduced to cover our obligations for retirement payments and other things, I assume.
Mm-hmm. And as Mary Beth was saying, like with the revenue anticipation note, a number of schools just do it because it all depends on how your monies flow, John. Like for us, so we have in our district, our levy is higher than most. Like many districts are more reliant on state aid. We're more reliant on local support. And so it all depends on how those monies come in. So people use, that's what Jeff was saying. People use, like school districts use revenue anticipation notes all the time because even for us, right, it towards the end of the summer, it gets tight. Even in good years, it's just how the cash flows. It just comes in kind of lump sums.
Yeah. No, the only reason I asked on timing is to make sure that we're doing it. You want to do it 10 days before. You want to dry run at least 30 days before. That's all. So it sounds like we have a lot of time before we got to worry about it.
Yes, and that's why we're watching the cash flow very, very closely.
Great.
Joanne, on another issue, you reported on revenues being completed for the previous year. Am I right in assuming that the only revenue item on our list of budgeted revenues that did not meet expectations was the sales tax for the year?
That's a loaded question for me, Dan. We did receive more than what I projected us to receive to hit $2 million. We received a little bit more than that. We didn't receive 2.1, but we did receive a little bit more.
What did we budget? We budgeted 2.1? Oh, 2.
No, 2.
2. And so,
I think it was 2. Yeah.
So we actually did receive.
We did receive it all, but based on last year, I would have thought based on last year, we got less in the last payment.
Yeah.
But
yeah, we were anticipating like more. We budgeted 2, but we thought we'd get 2.1, Dan.
And we ended up with.
We didn't hit that. We hit like close to the 2. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. I just wanted to be sure that that if there was a shortfall in sales tax, that it was made up for by other increased revenues that we didn't anticipate. So what you're saying is that when the books are all closed out and the auditors have completed their work, that we will be in the black on our revenue side of the budget.
Yes, we should. Yes, when it's all said and done, I'm anticipating that we have collected a little bit higher than what we budgeted.
Yeah, that's perfect. You know, again, it all fits with the appropriated fund balance. You know, you want to have a little bit more revenue than you expected. You want to spend a little bit less than you expected, so that you have that cushion for the appropriated fund balance. And it sounds like we're in good shape, and that our auditors will find that we're financially sound at the conclusion of the 1920 school year. Thank you.
Yes, that's what I anticipate.
Anybody have any other questions for Joanne?
Well, just to thank you for taking care of all the details, Joanne. Your job is just full of numbers and details, and I tend to be more of a global kind of a guy. I wouldn't want to do your job, and I appreciate the fact that you attend to the details. And for instance, you got all that stuff into Albany for our reimbursement for the building project, and you did it in a timely manner. And believe me, I appreciate the fact that it's not easy to do all that and to get all those papers together and all those, and I thank you for it.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joanne. Moving on to item B, board committee assignments. It was as part of the board packet, the last year's committee assignments. Did anybody have an objection to continuing on the committee assignments that you were assigned to last year?
My only question, Mary Beth, is just whether some of the committees are still, I mean, we can just leave the assignment as they are, but I saw like our grant committee, Terry, that we had at one point, which is now with Mark, actually, when we were doing that. So I didn't know if we want to just leave it to remain in case it does become active again, or.
I mentioned that to Jackie, because that's something we have not met, or I don't even think there is still a grant committee.
Right.
I thought we were going to remove it, Jack. Can I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to remove it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's one less we're on.
Okay, there we go. I wasn't trying to do that. I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew that nothing was really happening on that.
Yeah, it's just not, and we can always pull it back if we need to, but it's just something that
Right.
It's gone, kind of quiet.
Other than that, everybody's good staying where they're at.
I just want to jump in there. School visitation, I'm not sure how that's going to go.
Well,
Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
but you're on the committee. You're staying on the committee.
We'll have Mark walk around the building with a camera.
Yeah.
We'll sit home and watch.
That's my favorite thing to do, is you get so much on that day.
I know it, but I just don't know how that's going to go.
I know.
I'll put the GoPro on my head. Like that camera.
Maybe there's an alternative approach there, because one of the best parts about the visitation committee in recent years has been that we've had the opportunity to interact with the teachers and administrators in the building. Maybe we can come up with some brief meetings in the early morning where the teachers do get a chance to talk to the board members.
Yeah. The other piece that would be possible, and Jess Lyons actually set me up with this, is I became a phantom student in one of the Google classrooms. And it's for those of you that don't have children in going through that, if we are remote again, it just gives you a nice perspective of the million moving pieces it takes to run online learning. So that is an option as well for those of you that have not lived through the joy of that yet.
Well, that's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
I will suggest that committee meet with the principals and come up with a way to make the visitation this year be somewhat, meaningful. It's not going to be like it is traditionally,
Right.
but I leave it to that committee to
Okay.
We're not
come up with how
traditional. Might as well go on. Could I full disclosure, I was a really poor attendee of the ECASB legislative team this year. Kim, I don't know if you were able to attend any of the meetings. I don't think.
I think I went to one in the fall, possibly two, because I was backup, right?
We had split it this past year. I don't think that we represented East Aurora particularly well, and I know they've amped up the number of meetings and length of time. I don't know what will happen for the coming year.
Right.
About that, I think that with the direction of all things, it is not as beneficial to us. We're not all in. I don't know that we were in the same. We weren't necessarily aligned with other districts with what their concerns were and what they were pressing for with the legislative team. And that coupled with scheduling requirements, I was not able to attend a lot. So if the board would like better attendance, we may want to come up with an alternative method, maybe a rotating thing, or maybe we're not particularly concerned at this point. But I wanted to make sure you all knew my name was on there, and I have not been very good about going.
I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it either.
I mean, there was a point in time, especially with the gap elimination, where I felt like it was really helpful when we were going and we would do the breakfast, and we were really involved during that point in time. And it's kind of, it's dwindled down, but they may also do it by Zoom, which may make it easier, Jess. I mean, I know both of us were working full time. You're working full time. And so maybe with the Zoom, getting out to West Seneca was always kind of a challenge at 6 o'clock.
It may, and you're right, that may make it easier. I think that the issues became disparate, and we do tend to be unique when it comes to our needs. So I think since we weren't all battling GEA, we did end up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll say this too: the communication around that, is definitely ramped up because of the nature of what we're going through. So we're getting a lot of information from a variety of sources. So they're sharing a lot out, like you would go to the meetings and you would get the information. Now that information is coming to us on a regular basis. So I'll be honest, the necessity to attend, I think like you're saying when we were in the GEA, we had a common cause. Now, we always fall off a little bit. Like, our needs are in general different than many of the members. And so sometimes it's a little less productive for us, but I think they're sharing a lot of information now just because of the nature of what we're dealing with.
I would just suggest as we move forward through the year, if there's a meeting that either of you are unable to attend and you think it's going to capture, you get those agendas ahead of time. If it's an agenda that's something that we should be at, we can toss it out if somebody else can go.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a good plan.
Yep.
I see that our NYSBA voting delegate, we don't have a member for that. And now that we're back with NYSBA, do we need to have one?
Are we back with NYSBA?
Are we back, Brian?
Yeah, that was I think we decided we were going to.
We didn't have one last year because we weren't part of NYSBA.
Yeah.
But have we communicated to them and have we paid the dues?
I'll have to, Jack, do you know? Sue, go ahead.
I don't think so. I don't think that we have yet.
So with that in mind, do we want to not pay the dues and hold off for another year? There probably won't be a convention in October. And that's $9,000, a little more than that if we've got a $480,000 potential deficit.
Well, that's an issue we've dealt with in the past. I thought we resolved it. I thought we decided to rejoin. I think the important aspect of NYSBA is not the convention. The convention is fine if it's locally. If they have it in Buffalo, and it's my guess is they probably won't even have one this year. But I think that the staff development opportunities that they provide, the newsletter that they send out on board, the daily links to newspaper articles throughout the state on issues relating to education. There's just an awful lot of things that they do, including their legal research that they do for us and provide the law conferences. Those are all, and they're doing those virtually now. So I think more of us would be able to participate. I would like to see us get back into NISBA, but again, it's pretty hard to argue once a board member thinks that we have a better use for that $8,000.
Yeah, I supported joining because I do think they are a great resource. I feel like now in a, we don't have, as a board, that opportunity for that kind of development ourselves. And I do think as we move forward and especially with COVID hitting straight across New York State, I think that they have the opportunity to be quite a voice in terms of being able to make sure that equity is happening with respect to schools. And I still support doing it. I don't anticipate that there would be a convention. I don't think that in terms of a committee assignment that we need to have a voting delegate. But others can weigh in.
I have been reluctant to spend the money, but I do hear both Dan and Mary Beth's points, and I think that now would be a good time to be tied in with NISBA and folks who can fight for education across the state.
Well, especially since the governor has been taking such an active role in making decisions for education. I think NISBA is right there in Albany, and they can help us to communicate the local concerns that we might have to the Albany officials, especially the governor, so that they don't go off half-cocked and start issuing executive orders that are impossible for us to implement. NISBA has a voice that we don't have.
Anybody else?
I'm fine staying with it. I think for the reasons, we spoke about this before, and I think especially in light of everything going on.
Great.
Okay. All right. Then that's it for committee assignments. We did already discuss the board administrative retreat. That is the week of July 20th. Are we doing it on the 22nd, Brian? I'm sorry. I think I put it in my calendar for that.
Yeah. 23rd, right?
Third, yes.
Yep. We say noon or did we say 1?
23rd.
Yep. Did we say noon or did we say 1?
1.
1 o'clock, John.
All
Thank
right.
you.
July
item B.
23rd at 1 o'clock?
Yes.
July 23rd at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thank you.
Item D is an update on the capital facilities project.
Yeah, Joanne updated you a little bit, like saying the capital outlay for the sidewalks and windows, that's closed out. Really nice job. They were able to do the extension, so we were able to go all the way down to the driveway. There's still a piece at the end that we wanted to replace, but that part of it was in much better shape than the front curbs were really, really damaged, and they just did a really great job pulling that together. Also, the necessary improvements to the windows are done. The repair reserve, we're working on that, and that includes the gym floor and the shower stalls, a couple adjustments there, and what's the other thing?
The main entrance at the middle school.
Yeah, okay, there you go. The main entrance to the middle school, which is the biggest part of it and most important. That's going to be we're going to do that in stages. So the stairs will be poured prior to the opening of school, and then the door adjustment will be made. Will be completed. We're hoping by maybe the end of October. So we'll be just using the back entryway until that is completed. And so they have a plan for making sure that's going to work, right, Matt? Yeah, everything's good.
So
Yeah.
they can't get that done over the summer?
Oh. Not all. We were trying, Dan, and part of it was pressing the construction companies to get it done because they're having a hard time getting the supplies. So just because of all the issues related to the
Supply chain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we said instead of pushing them to get it done by September 1st, and then they said people would back off because they just knew they couldn't get the materials because of the current conditions. So we just had to kind of put it off and like I said, do it in stages where they're going to get the they're going to get the stairs done, and that'll all be redone. But the actual entryway will not be completed. I think they said end of October, right, Matt?
Yeah, they hope
Yeah.
for middle of October.
Yeah.
They just explained that there's a ton of lead time because everything's custom made.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lead time for a lot of those things. So we just emphasized if you can get the steps in and all that concrete work done before school starts, hopefully the kids will be coming in and we can use that until they need to shut it down for X amount of weeks. And then we'll just reroute to the back. I mean, we'll figure it out. That's something that we can definitely figure out.
Yep.
So has it gone out to bids yet?
Joanne, is that one going out to bid yet?
We're advertising next week.
Yeah.
So it'll be going out soon to bid.
Thank you. And then the other capital outlay is moving forward as well. So, we've actually made like some really good progress with these. Joanne and I had talked about like the capital outlay. She had some experience with it, and they just seem to be moving through SED much more quickly than they typically do. The reviews are fairly straightforward, and so they've been moving and processing the paperwork at a much better pace than they have in the past, right? I mean, Joanne, have you found that too? It seems like
Yes.
it's just been better. So we're just going to get all that rest of that work done. So that's a good thing.
We should just keep doing those every year. You spend 100,000, you get 60,000 back right away.
Yeah.
So you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong. It's a bargain.
And the one thing they're thinking about is actually expanding that, like just like for us, you can do some things for 100,000. It's not a lot of money, it's not a lot of money, but we can do some things with it. But downstate, they have a difficult time, utilizing just $100,000 just because the cost of living and the adjustments that they deal with. So they're thinking about expanding it to 250,000. So we'll see. It's been in the legislature. We'll see if that'll happen. So, but the process works really well. And that's about it. Any other questions at all?
What are we planning on doing for the second one?
That is the capital outlay for that is the finishing of the business office.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So that's
Any other legislation, Brian? You mentioned that, but anything else?
no, I think that's about it.
Okay. All right, we're moving on to the consensus agenda. Is there anyone who wanted to remove an item for separate discussion? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Dan, second. Seconded by John Seghetti. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
All right, we are moving on to page, I'm gonna find the
7.
page 8. Right? Page 8?
Yeah.
Page
Yes, number 11.
Number 11, other items requiring board action. Everybody with me? We're gonna rocket docket this, okay?
I'm here.
Item A, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education designate M&T Bank as the district's lead bank and the following banks: Bank of Holland, Bank of America, Evans Bank, JP Morgan Chase, and New York Cooperative Liquid Asset Security Systems as depositories for district monies. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Jessica, seconded by John Seghetti. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0. Item B, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Harris Beach as attorneys at law for school legal services through June 30th of 2021, all as detailed in the attachment. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Kim, seconded by John. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Item C, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Webster Zaney, attorneys at law for school legal services effective through June 30th of 2021, under the terms as detailed in the attachment. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Kim, second.
Second?
Seconded by Jessica. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Item D, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Hodgson Ross, attorneys at law for school legal services through June 30th of 2021, under the terms and conditions as detailed in the attachment number 16. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Kim, second by John Seghetti. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Carried 7-0. Item F, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Personius Melber, attorneys at law for school legal services through June 30th, 2021, under the terms and conditions as detailed in the attachment that was emailed to you earlier today. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Kim, second.
Second.
Seconded by Terry Olweiler. Discussion? All those in favor? Whoops,
Excuse me.
Jessica?
No, I think we may have missed one of the Hutch and Russ.
E.
We did.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did. All right. I'll go back to it. But all those in
Thank you.
favor on item F, please say
Aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Item E, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Hodgson Ross attorneys at law for bond counsel, school legal services through June 30th of 2021 under the conditions as detailed in attachment 17. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Kim
Second.
Daniels, seconded by John Segretti. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to item G, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Bufamonte, Whipple, and Budafaro as the district's external auditor for the 2020-21 school year at the cost indicated. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Terry Olweiler, second,
Second.
seconded by Jessica.
Jess or John?
Armbrust.
Yes.
Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Item H, the superintendent, carried 7-0. Item H, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint executive secretary to the superintendent's public relations representative as the records access officer for the 2020-21 school year. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So
Moved by
moved.
Jessica, seconded by Kim Daniel. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0. Item I, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the following resolution designating the board president as the board member that shall have authority to appoint an impartial hearing officer on behalf of the Board of Education under Board Policy 7670. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Terry Olweiler, second.
Second.
Seconded by John Segretti. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Item J, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education approve a resolution delegating to the president of the board the power to authorize the issuance of revenue anticipation notes. The resolution itself is all listed in your agenda. I believe this one this is going to require a roll call vote, so we may have the motion first.
Moved.
Moved by John, second.
Second.
Seconded by Kim Daniel. Discussion? All right, and we'll do all those in favor. Jessica Armbrust,
Aye.
Terry Olweiler,
Aye.
John Segretti,
Aye.
Judy Malice,
Aye.
Dan Brunson,
Aye.
Kim Daniel,
Aye.
and I'm aye as well. They're carried 7-0.
The only thing I would ask is that should such a contingency occur, that you let us know at the time that it happens.
Of course.
Of course. Item K, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Courtney M. Brown to a probationary 1.0 FTE in the tenure area of elementary education beginning September 1 of 2020. All as detailed in attachment 19. May I have a motion?
Moved.
Moved by John, seconded by Judy Malice. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Carried 7-0. Item L, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education appoint Emily Krause to a probationary 1.0 FTE position in the 10-year area of education of children with handicapping conditions, general special education, beginning on September 1 of 2020, ending August 31st of 2023. all is detailed in attachment 20. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Judy Malice, second.
Second.
Seconded by Kim Daniel. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0. Item N, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education designate and authorize the high school assistant principal and/or the K-8 assistant principal to serve as acting principal in the absence of a building principal for the purposes of imposing discipline under the New York Education Law, Section 3214. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Terry Olweiler, second.
Second.
Second by Jessica Armbruster. Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Carried 7-0. So our agenda says our next regularly scheduled board meeting is Wednesday, August 19th of 2020. We do, however, have that other meeting on July 23rd in the afternoon at 1 o'clock. Is there any other business to come before the board?
This is the fastest reorg meeting.
Yeah.
Not bad, Mary Beth. We went to about 9:05 with just comments, and then in 15 minutes we pulled the rest of
Yeah,
the
you literally went through those. Thank you.
All right. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Kim Daniels, seconded by Judy Malice. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a
all
good
for
night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Right.
Mr. Mambretti,
Yes, yes.
did we have any visitors this evening?
Very small number. There was about 3, probably about